This is going to be part 2 of the Macintosh SE Restoration. Hopefully we're going to be cleaning and rebuilding in this video. I'm not exactly sure about the rebuilding part, just depends on how long this takes and how long cleaning takes. I'll try to make it go by pretty quick. I think we're going to start off first with the motherboard, basically just because it doesn't work and I want to get it kind of cleaned, and it's going to need the longest amount of time to dry. So we are going to go ahead and clean this. Now, I am going to desolder the battery. I actually forgot about that, but I am going to desolder the battery before I wash it, of course. And I'm going to pull off, all the ROMs and this chip right here, and the RAM as well. Just because the board doesn't work, and you guys saw that in the beginning of part 1. So that's basically why I'm going to be washing the board. Normally, it is pretty clean. I would probably just leave it like it is, but because it had those problems in the beginning, I am going to just end up probably washing the board in the sink. But that'll probably be the only actual circuit board that I'll be washing, because the rest of the machine, there's the analog board, the CRT, and the floppy drives really don't need to be washed. I'll clean those up, and I'll re-lubricate one of the floppy drives, just to show you guys if anybody doesn't know how to do that. Just go over it a little bit. And anyway, I think we should probably start with the motherboard like I mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the chips off and we'll go ahead and wash it. So I did go ahead and remove all the chips from the board and the RAM, just for the time being, until I can finish up cleaning it. I also did remove the speaker off of the front panel. I did that a little earlier just because I figured I'd get it off before the video started. Not really sure why, I just wanted to get it over with. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was actually thinking about putting a little battery holder in there. This is just a half AA battery holder. I bought a couple of these originally to use with my Mac 2, but I decided that I'm going to try to do something else instead of that. And but they'll just hold any half AA battery. In fact, I actually have a brand new one that I was planning on putting in there in the Macintosh 2. But I think with a little adjustment of the leads in the bottom of here, I could probably get that to fit perfectly. And I may or may not add that. I might just leave it without it. It just kind of depends on what I decide to do. So if I decide to, I might just add that in. But I think for now, I'm going to leave it without it. I also have the little covers for the top of them, just in case I want to do that too. Which I would also do if I was going to add one. But I think that's it for now. We'll go ahead and wash the board. And then we'll probably start working on the floppy drives because I want to get those finished. Those are probably going to be the hardest part of this entire machine. So I want to get those finished before anything else. So next time I see you guys, the board will be done. So I did go ahead and remove all of the chips and everything from the board, and I also washed it. That's why I'm actually holding it in a towel. I did make sure to remove the battery, and that is one thing, I almost forgot about it. So pretty much anybody can almost forget about it. So just make sure to remove the battery before you're going to wash the board. This one turned out pretty good. I did check the battery with my multimeter, and it actually didn't have any charge, so it had about, I can't even remember, less than a volt, and they're 3-volt batteries, so I didn't even think about putting it back in here. However, I did test the battery from my other Macintosh SE, and when I removed that battery, it did still hold a charge. Or it did still keep date and time. And it was the original battery. It's got a date code of, I believe, 15th week of 88. And believe it or not, it's been out of that machine for almost a year now. Because I did take it out because I was worried it was going to leak. It was kind of like during a time when I was getting worried about all my batteries leaking. So I was snipping them on all my older computers. And I wish I really would have had a multimeter then, because I did just test the voltage, and it was still a steady 3 volts. So I'm actually fairly surprised, and I would put it back in the machine. However, I snipped the leads off of it, which kind of makes that useless now. So that kind of sucks, but in a way, you never know when the things can leak. Once they run out of charge, they do usually leak pretty quick. So, I mean, it's always best to remove them, I guess. I don't know. It did still hold a charge, and it wasn't leaking at all. It was still in pretty good condition. And it seems to still hold a charge even today, and that was almost a year ago. So I'd call that pretty darn good. But that's the board. It's finished now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this up on my just to dry, and then we'll start on the floppy drives, because those are probably going to be the next hardest thing to do. And then once we're done with that, then we can move on to the casing, and the CRT that'll be last, since it'll probably be the easiest to clean. And that'll be along with the power supply and analog board. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dry this, and I'm going to go put it so it can dry, and then we'll start on the floppy drives. So I'm using my hands to film this one instead of putting it on the tripod, just because I need to get up to some closer areas. So that's the only reason why I'm doing this. Just to start off, I'm going to show you guys what a normal disc looks like in this drive. Last time I actually got it to work, but this time you see it kind of locks up, and then it eventually slides back down, but it takes a little while to do that. So that's why I'm going to re-lubricate the drive, and overall just re-clean it. This will only be for this one. This is the upper drive. The other one I'm going to clean off camera because you guys are already going to know how to do it. So this is the grease that I'm going to be using. This is just white lithium grease. You can pretty much get this at any hardware store. I happen to get mine at Menards or Lowe's or whatever. Whatever you have near you will work fine. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and this is pretty much obvious with all of these, is remove this guy right here, and that's going to hold the head up. I can actually go ahead and do that right now. So the only reason you really want to remove that is because it will push the heads up when you're pulling it out, and I don't even want to risk it, so I'm just going to let them clamp down like that. So next up, just remove these screws right here at the bottom, if my camera will want to focus. Right there at the bottom, you can remove these, and just use little tweezers. And once you remove those, you should be able to adjust this entire upper assembly just to the right area, right about in between here where you can, this opens in here, and then you can actually pull the entire upper drive assembly right off, and then I'll show you what to do from there. There is the upper assembly for the floppy drive. That's actually where the floppy disk sits. There's your motor, and there's your heads. This can all be disassembled fully. This can be disassembled fully. These little plastic washers will come up with, if you just stick something under there and pop them off. Be careful so you don't lose them, because that's happened to me before. We're not going to worry about the head in this one, since this one's really not that dirty. I just want to be able to get these off so I can re-lubricate underneath that piece right here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And the only reason you want to do that, and actually I should mention, you will need to take the auto eject motor out, or auto eject mechanism out, because this is attached to that in that corner right there, and that'll allow you to just pull that off, and then you can take this thing entirely off. And don't forget to clean the heads with just a cotton Q-tip whenever you get to that point. So let me go ahead and take this off, and then we'll go from there. So there is the auto eject mechanism along with the washers and the screws for it, and then you can just pull this piece right off. We're not going to do anything else with this drive. We're not going to do anything else with this drive, just because it's not too dirty and the heads aren't broken or anything. I can't stress this enough. Do not pull up on these. You will bend them. There is a way you can fix them. In fact, I've actually fixed one like that similar in another machine that I'm actually planning on restoring soon. I did bend that up, or the original owner bent it up, and I actually fixed it. Of course, the floppy drive still didn't work because the heads were actually ripped off by another person as well, and they were all misaligned, and that just can be a big pain, so I'm just going to buy a whole new head assembly. But like I said, that'll be for another video. But anyway, that's how you disassemble these drives mainly, and all you want to do is clean up any spot you see, like right there. You can see two little kind of things right here, and those you just need to clean up with some alcohol. I'm probably just going to clean this up with alcohol and maybe wash it off in the sink and dry it really well, because there is some grease on there too. And other than that, pretty much not much else you're going to need to do. You will need to re-oil that, or re-lubricate that, and there's some guides online that'll tell you how to do that. If I have some time and I actually remember, I will post a link in the description, and but if I don't, just let me know, and I'll go ahead and post that for you. So, yeah, just basically do that, and I'll reassemble the drive. That's about all I'm going to do with this drive for now. That's all I'm going to record. because it's going to get too long if I keep recording on about everything I do. Maybe I'll make another in-depth review of that some other time. But for now, that's basically just an overview of what you have to do with these if you're going to be working on one. That's what I'm going to do with both of them. And then once I get those all finished up and the brackets cleaned, then we'll move to the analog board and the CRT, or the casing I should say, and then we'll do that, and we'll be finished hopefully. So I'll catch you guys in a sec. So after a little bit of work, I was able to get the floppy drive working pretty much like new. There's an example for you. It really locks down nice, and it ejects pretty well too. So I think it turned out pretty good. There's where I added the new grease, and also right down in there where that little peg is, and on each side there. I also cleaned up the heads. The heads should look nice and shiny now. And yeah, everything's all assembled. All I've got to do now is put it back in the drive cage, and then I'm going to clean up too, just really quick. And then I should have everything ready to go, and then we should be able to work on the casing and then the analog board, and hopefully we should be done by then. So catch you guys in a sec. So I finished up both of the floppy drives, and I think they turned out pretty darn good. There's the upper one and there's the lower one. That's exactly how they came. Both of them seem to eject. Hard to do with one hand. And they seem to load the discs pretty good. So I think it's about time that we moved on to something else. Both the cases are cleaned, and they are mounted back together. That's the mounting bracket just a little bit of a closer detail for anybody who was wondering. So I think next up, I think I mentioned we were going to do the case. So here is the front panel. And very messy back here, but here is the rear. That is actually a machine that I picked up a little while ago. That was a little restoration I did, just kind of one night restoration thing that I did, and it turned out pretty good. So anyway, here is the inside of the machine. This is kind of coated in some sort of a silvery plastic. I don't know, it could be a fire retardant, I shouldn't say plastic, paint type thing. And I'm a little worried to scrub the inside of this because that'll leave little lines all over it. So I think I'm just going to run this with a little water and maybe clean up some of the edges where it's a little dusty. But mainly I'm just going to be cleaning the outside because the inside, to tell you the truth, really doesn't matter to me. Nobody's going to see it. I just wanted the motherboard and floppy drives to function. That's the only reason why I cleaned those up. So this will be cleaned. I'll pop that rear panel out, or that rear cover right there. And this shouldn't be too hard to just rinse down and scrub off some of that crap on the sides there. So once I get this all done, I'll get back to you guys, and we'll just finish up with the CRT and power and analog board. And then it's getting a little late, so that's probably going to be all we're going to do in this video. I might start putting it partially back together. I don't know. We'll have to see on that. I might just put it together, and the next video will just end up turning it on and seeing if it works. That's probably what I'll end up doing unless I have time yet. So yeah, that's basically it. I'll catch you guys in a sec when I'm done cleaning up the case, and we'll work on that. Just kind of clean it up, check it over, and then we'll go from there. I decided it would be a little easier if I just skipped cleaning the outer shell and just cleaned the faceplate. That's all I did. It's actually drying in the other room right now. So I figured it would be a little easier if I didn't clean that. I'll just clean that off video because it's really not going to make a difference. I mean, the computer can run technically without it on. So we're going to go ahead and we'll take a look at the analog board quick here, and then might just clean it up and install it into the rest of the chassis because, like I said, it's getting a little late and I don't really want to be working on this thing so long. So I'll go ahead and kind of start disassembling it, and once I get it apart, we'll take a look at it. So here we are. Here is the analog board. There's your anode cap. For anybody wondering, that's what it looks like. Two little prongs in there. There's the fan. There's where the power supply goes, right in this big area right here. Brightness control. And you do have power for a hard drive, which this machine doesn't have, and some other little odds and ends right here. This goes to the logic board. That goes to the power supply, and this goes to the neck board for the CRT. So set that off to the side. Here's the power supply. Now, I've heard some of these caps in here do tend to go bad. I'm not going to go ahead and replace them now because they're really not changing anything. But there's a label right there. What are you doing, cat? Stop, please. There's a little label, made in Singapore. So, we'll just go ahead and pop these sides off here and inspect it. Well, there's no doubt that's a power supply with all the big caps in there, especially that one right there. Everything looks to be in pretty good condition. I'm assuming these are going to be the first to fail, if any, and then probably those up there. There might be some back there too. Really looks to be in pretty good condition. Not even that dusty. So, yeah, I'll just go ahead and put it back together. I don't think there's really much else on the analog board I'm going to need to clean. I wanted to clean that fan, but it's kind of glued down, so I don't know. It kind of depends, I guess. I might just brush it off. That should work. So, yeah, we'll just go ahead and put the analog board back together, I guess. There's really nothing else I can do. I just wanted to check and see if everything looked decent in here. I guess we'll just go ahead and start putting everything back together now. So I apologize for kind of skipping around in this video. I do have the machine back together. I did not clean the back panel, however. I only did the front panel and everything that's inside of it. The only part I never cleaned was the rear cover, basically. It's not really a panel, but anyway. I do apologize for not filming any of it. It just kind of got messed up. I was actually trying to test the machine to see if it would work, and no luck. I will go ahead and show you guys, though, what it does. So, like I showed you guys before, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And, of course, that's all that happens. Everything does work, though. The monitor and everything seems to still work fine. So I didn't really do much damage, I don't think, if any. I just basically left it the same. And it'll just keep doing that because the floppy drives are hooked up in this case. So, I'm going to give up on this machine for now. I've kind of come to the conclusion that it's probably the ROMs that have causing the entire problem, because I actually, like I said before, and like you guys have seen if you've watched my videos for a while, I do have another Macintosh SE, and that machine does have a working motherboard or logic board. So what I did is I swapped the RAM in this. I took that logic board and put it into this machine, mainly so I could check the floppy drives and check the analog board and the power supply and get those crossed off as working. And then I checked the RAM in that board. I put the RAM from this unit into that board, and that was all. It all worked fine. So the RAM is not a problem. It's not a logic board. It's not a. It's not a power supply. It's not an it might be a logic board, but it's not an analog board. It basically doesn't have anything to do with that. And the floppy drives do work, just in case anybody's wondering. So it's got to be the ROMs or the board itself. Something must be wrong with the board or the ROMs, like I said. I did sand down the ROMs just a little bit, just the pins on the ROMs, just made sure that they were touching up against the contacts on the actual sockets for them. I also used my multimeter just to make sure that they were making connections, and it all seems to check out fine. So I'm thinking it's got to be the ROMs. So the next thing I'm planning on doing, I don't know if it's going to work, but I think possibly in another video, because this is going to be the end of part 2 for now. I'm just going to kind of leave it at this for now, just until I can figure out something else to do with this, and then I'll start the video up again and kind of start off where I left off. What I'm going to try doing is taking the ROMs from my actual SE and putting them into this one and seeing if I can possibly diagnose a problem ROM, whether it's the high or low ROM, and kind of go from there. So that's where I'm going to leave it for this video. Sorry it wasn't very interesting, and kind of apologize, like I said before, for not really filming any of the really any of the reassembly, just more of the basically now that's all I'm doing after it's pretty much fully reassembled. I will go ahead and clean the back cover some other day. I won't film that though, because it's not hard to do. It just needs to be scrubbed down a little bit. So, and really I wouldn't film it anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. So that's the Macintosh SE as it is now. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, sorry I didn't have anything really good to show you guys. I was hoping it was going to work, but unfortunately it does not. So, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later with another video.